Jane, welcome back to XMediaX. So today we're going to be talking about how to track your ovulation at home. I'm just going to start off by saying, as usual, I'm not a doctor. This is just information I have learnt over the last 2 years after coming off the pill. After 10 whole years of being on it, I have documented my journey in a couple of videos if you're interested in hearing about that. Just need to remember that while there are standard things that happen as part of a normal menstrual cycle, everybody is different. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, please do go and see your GP. It is absolutely chucking it down today, so if you can hear the rain in the background, I feel like it'll help us all relax while we're talking about this today, but I'm very, very cold. I've got about 5 layers on, a nice cup of lemon and honey, and we're just gonna power through. Autumn and winter is definitely here. I'm here for it, but it's pretty grim out there today. First things first, what actually is ovulation? Well, ovulation happens once per cycle, and it is where your ovaries release an egg that travels down the fallopian tubes and into your uterus, and along the way it's either fertilized by sperm and it triggers the start of a pregnancy, or it's left unfertilized and it triggers the start of your menstrual cycle. Now, exactly when this happens can vary from month to month and from person to person. However, in order to be considered a normal menstrual cycle, ovulation needs to take place. Contraception and conception aside, it's actually really useful to know if your body is ovulating, because if it's not, it can help indicate an underlying health problem or a hormone imbalance that you can investigate further. So the only way to 100% confirm if ovulation has happened each month is with a scan. Now, obviously that is not going to be accessible to all of us, so instead we can use our body's natural biomarkers to see when ovulation is about to happen and also if it has happened. So how do you track your ovulation at home? Well, the first thing you are going to need is a way to track your cycle. Again, I've got a whole video on this, so please do go and check that out if you want a little bit more information. But the two main ways you can track your cycle is either with a period tracking app or with an old school pen and paper journal. Now, the period tracking apps often come with technology that help guess when your fertile window might be. It's not like they told us in school or what we've been led to believe that you can get pregnant any day of the month. We actually only have a few days per month where we are fertile and where conception can take place, which is why if you are trying to conceive, it's really important to pinpoint exactly when that fertile window is. Just a little side note here to say that don't forget, sperm can live in your body for up to 5 days, in some cases even 7, which means even if you haven't yet ovulated, but you have unprotected penetrative sex where sperm is released into the vagina, if you do then ovulate within the next 5 to 7 days, there still is a chance that you might get pregnant. Another reason why it's really important to know your fertile window. So once we have a way to track our cycle and record when our fertile window is, we want to start looking into exactly when that's happening. And one of the more direct ways you can do that is by using an ovulation test. How ovulation tests work is that they detect a surge in the LH hormone, which tends to rise between 12 and 48 hours before ovulation. Now, there's loads of different ovulation tests you can buy, from the really expensive digital ones down to the quite cheap ones that you can buy in bulk, but they all pretty much do the same thing. So as long as you're using them correctly, and there are different ways to use them, which I'm happy to cover in another video if you want a few more details, but as long as you're using them correctly and there's no underlying issues, they can give you quite an accurate prediction of when ovulation is on the way. I feel like I could write an entire blog post just on the different ovulation tests. I've tried so many, and I definitely have my favorites and the ones that work for me. So if you would like any more content around that, going into a little bit more detail about how I use them to exactly pinpoint that ovulation time, then please do let me know and I can add it to my list. Okay, so aside from ovulation tests, there are certain natural biomarkers, the signs that our bodies give us to tell us that ovulation is on the way, and they are also another thing that you can track. Again, the more information that you have around this, the more accurate you can be to help pinpoint that fertile window. The first natural biomarker we're going to talk about is discharge, one of my favourite words, also known as cervical mucus. Now, if you watched my tracking your cycle video, and again, I can do another video just on discharge if you really want me to, but your discharge will change as you go through your cycle, and depending on which stage of your menstrual cycle you are at, your discharge will look and feel a certain way. It's not disgusting or anything to be ashamed about, as we may have been brought up feeling. Discharge is actually really freaking cool, and it can give you so much information about what's going on in your body. It's also completely natural, so please don't be afraid about those little white marks in your pants. It's fine. But specifically around ovulation tracking, your cervical mucus will change to an egg white consistency when your body is fertile. And what I mean by egg whites is that it will go clear and also really stretchy. There's different ways that you can check your cervical mucus. Some of the easy ways are, if you go to the toilet, just give a little wipe before you go and have a look at what is on the tissue, and you'll be able to see some of your discharge or cervical mucus on there. You can also insert 2 clean fingers into the vaginal canal and have a sweep around and across your cervix and see what comes out. Once you've done this for a couple of months, you will be able to spot your fertile discharge. It is super stretchy. You'll be able to stretch it between your fingers and it'll go really, really far. It's quite amazing how much it changes when your body becomes fertile. And all of these changes are designed to help aid conception by helping the sperm make its way through the cervix into your uterus, so it can go forth and procreate. So discharge, cervical mucus, one of the easiest, I think, biomarkers to measure to kind of figure out when your fertile window is. The next biomarker is checking the position of your cervix. Your cervix sits at the top of your vaginal canal and it is the entrance to your uterus, and your cervix will change position and also change softness throughout your cycle depending on which stage of your cycle you're at. Now, if you haven't felt your cervix before, you're not alone. I hadn't felt my cervix until we started trying to conceive either. So it can be really confusing to know exactly what it feels like. So I'm gonna try and explain as best as I can how I think it feels and how you can kind of figure out where it is. But again, if you insert a clean finger or 2 into the vaginal canal, it kind of feels like the tip of your nose. That's what you're looking for, right at the very top of your vaginal canal, and you'll be able to feel like a tiny little hole inside it as well. Now, it depends on which stage of your cycle you're at, and this is another reason why it can indicate if you're fertile. So if you are not fertile, if you're not about to ovulate or have just ovulated, your cervix may sit a little bit lower in your vaginal canal, so you'll reach it sooner. And you can mark that by looking at how much of your finger you have to insert before you hit it. When you're not fertile, it will feel like the tip of your nose. It might be a little bit firm, and the hole that you can feel may feel a lot smaller. However, when you're entering your fertile window, the cervix actually sits higher up the vaginal canal, so you might find that you have to insert your fingers further in order to find it. And it's more likely to feel like your bottom lip. If you relax your lips, like don't tighten them or anything, relax your bottom lip and feel the difference between that and the tip of your nose. You'll notice that the bottom lip is a lot softer, and you also might notice that the hole is a little bit more open than it was at other parts of your cycle. A higher, softer and more open cervix can indicate you're entering your fertile window. Again, these things are just designed to help sperm enter the uterus a little bit easier and to help aid conception. So you might have to check out your cycle over the space of 4 weeks or however long your cycle is and notice the changes at different parts in order to be able to pinpoint the fertile ones. Another little side note, if you're feeling your cervix for the first time, you might not be able to feel the hole directly into the vaginal canal, if that makes sense. So for me, I didn't realise until I started checking my cervix position when we were trying to conceive that I actually have a tilted cervix, which means that my cervix is actually positioned more towards my spine. So for me, I have to sort of reach round the back a little bit in order to find the little hole. So if you're not finding the hole and you're unsure whether you've hit cervix or not, it could be that you might have a tilted cervix. Nothing to worry about, it just means it's in a different position. So keep that in mind if you're trying to figure out how it all feels for the first time. Now, the last measure that most people use, and something that I have done an entire video on because it can get a little bit tricky and it needs to be quite specific, is your basal body temperature, or BBT tracking, which you might have heard people talk about. I'm going to give you a brief overview now, but if you want to find out more whole video on that you can go and watch next. But basically, your body temperature rises and falls depending on which part of your cycle you are in. Typically, it is a little bit lower at the first half of your cycle. It dips just before ovulation, and then it rises after you've ovulated. It then tends to stay high if you are pregnant, or drop back down again to start the cycle all over again if you didn't conceive. So tracking your basal body temperature is a really great way to find out when ovulation is imminent, but more so to just confirm that ovulation has happened, because you will see that spike in temperature. It can be a really accurate method to help you track your ovulation, but there are definitely ways that you need to do it to make it as accurate as possible, which I do cover in the other video or in the blog if you prefer to read. So do check that out if you're thinking about starting BBT tracking. Personally, I found it so useful, and once you're in the habit of it, it's actually really easy to do. So that's kind of a little crash course into how to track your ovulation at home. Just don't forget that your ovulation can vary from cycle to cycle for no reason at all, or for different sort of outside factors like illness, travel, like stress. Anything can kind of affect your cycle. So if you are trying to conceive, you need to be as accurate as possible. So you want to be tracking your ovulation every single month. Don't just do it once, take it for granted that it happens on day 16, for example, and then move with that every single month going forward. You want to be on top of it to make sure that you know exactly when you're ovulating each cycle. And of course, don't just rely on an app guessing when your ovulation is, because they're not always fully accurate. For example, my personal experience, I use Flow to track my cycle. I really like it. It works for me. I've been using it for a couple of years. It's great. But I noticed when we started trying to conceive and I started to properly track my ovulation, that it was often out by between 3 and 5 days each cycle. They can be pretty accurate, but they're not always going to be completely accurate. That is why it's a really good idea to couple it together with 1 or 2 other natural biomarkers that really help you pinpoint when you're fertile and when you're not. I feel like I could talk about all this for ages, but if you'd like to see any other videos sort of expanding on any part of this, please let me know in the comment section, or come and follow me on Instagram, drop me a DM if you prefer. And yeah, any questions, again, comments, DMs, whatever. I'm not an expert, but I do have a lot of knowledge on this. And I think it's really important that we know what's going on in our bodies, because it can just help you work with your hormones instead of against them. And in my experience, it makes for an easier life. It really does. But if you have found this video helpful in any way, please do give it a giant thumbs up, because that can help other people find it. Leave a comment, that also helps to boost the video so more people can see it, and we can open up this conversation to more people as well. And if you're feeling extra nice and you want to hang around for a little bit, feel free to subscribe. I've got lots of hormone content. I've got it all in a playlist, so it's easy to find. And also videos on other stuff as well, just general reality, unfiltered life. And we'd love to have you if you want to stick around. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.